everyone, it's Adam Helfman from Hire It Done. I've got Chris Quackenbush from Coy Construction. We're going to be talking Trex decking. If you've got a regular deck in your backyard, sick of staining it, sick of cleaning it, tune in. You're going to learn everything there is to know about composite decking from Trex. Hey everyone, it's Adam Helfman. Thanks for tuning into the podcast. I've got Chris Quackenbush from Coy Construction in studio. How you doing, Chris?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So if you're planning on doing any home improvements this year, we always talk about the top 5 home improvements, whatever's on the inside of your house and whatever goes to the outside. Well, today we're going to be talking everything decks. Exterior decks are very popular. It's a high value home improvement, which means it gives you good return on investment, and you can't put value on enjoyment. It's pretty much priceless. So we're going to talk to Chris, and we're going to be talking about what's the best deck, because we'll always know what it is. We're going to talk about composite, how long should it take, and if you're planning on having a graduation party, you better start now because the good guys are already getting booked up. Chris, let me ask you this. Coy Construction, you guys just focus on decks, correct?
Yeah, decks and screen porches. That's it.
Oh, so you do screen porches. Oh, I like that.
Yep.
Well, can you take an old deck and screen it in?
Yeah, absolutely. It depends on the substructure, so we make sure that it's supported properly. But if we have to add some supports or anything like that to put a screen porch on, we do.
So when someone's thinking about getting a deck, typically most homeowners, unless it's a new construction, have an existing deck for the most part, or maybe an old patio. So they start thinking about it. They call up Coy Construction, and basically over the phone, they tell you that they're interested in a deck. Well, how does that conversation on the phone work?
Usually when you call in, we have either Lauren or Allie will answer the phone, set up an appointment for either Chris, or we have another salesperson, Chris, that'll come out to take a look at it and assess it. So if it's a deck that's currently there, that we can reuse that substructure, we do take a look at it and see if it's something that we can do. As long as they're looking to kind of keep that same design. If it's a patio, depends on the height of that patio. A lot of times we can go right over top of it. It's a good weed barrier already. So we might still put some plastic and stone underneath that, but we can cut through that patio or lift some bricks up to set some footings and go.
That sounds like an interesting way to do it. I didn't even think of that. So now that we've actually brought up about how a deck is built, let's talk about the actual construction of a deck. Now, does it make a difference if I go with cedar or treated lumber or Trex lumber on how the base of the deck is designed, or is pretty much the base always the same?
I mean, we're going to build the base always the same. You can do something where like the joists are 24 inches on center versus 16, but we'll always build them 16 on center. Trex requires 16 on center unless it's on a diagonal. You do have to have 12 inches on center. But most decks are constructed at 16 inches on center.
Okay. So you do always err on the side of being conservatively. Makes sense. So, okay. Basically, you come out to the house, you design a deck, and let's just go with someone says, yeah, I want a deck. The process works where they've picked everything out. You guys don't start the process until the material's on site?
Correct. Yeah. So there's a lot of back scene type stuff that either myself or Chris, the other design and sales guy, would do, is set up permit stuff. So we're applying for permits. We're making sure that those are all good. We're going to call for misdig. Once we get closer to that, we set up multiple appointments. If a customer wants to, is a little questioning the color, railing style, stuff like that, we'll meet. We have an indoor and outdoor showroom. So we'll meet multiple times with that homeowner to make sure that they're
interesting. How important is it when a homeowner meets with you and then one of the meetings is at your office? Is it required that they come to your office? Because I've been to your office, and the selections, the actual outdoor decks that you have allows people to kind of kick the tires.
Yeah. So when it comes to, I always highly recommend it because there are so many different styles and colors that you might think that you're getting, you want this style, but then all of a sudden you look at it and you're like, oh, I didn't really like this, or the color. Sometimes those little sample pieces don't do it justice when it comes to some of these colors. So looking at a bigger totality and then bringing it home, bringing a sample home is always number one too. So I always say, don't try and make a decision in the office for something that you're going to put on your home. Take some samples home and have that go. So that's where the big misconception is.
Sure.
Is make sure that you're doing that right.
So, Chris, when does deck season really start?
So for us, it's really all year round. We try and keep ourselves busy, all the way through the winter. Right now, like I would say deck sales is starting now. Like we are booking up. We're trying to get all the way through. We'll get to the point where we're 14 to 16 weeks out. And if you're looking for a deck in May, we wouldn't be there till September. So big thing is getting in now, getting in sooner. Let's nail down a design. Let's nail down everything and get on our schedule.
So people are coming out of the winter, been cooped up all winter. They're like, I got to do this. They're ready. I know the last couple of years post-COVID, it's been staycation. People don't want to go anywhere. They want to stay home. They want to enjoy their surroundings. Why not spend the money in the backyard and, smokers, pizza ovens, outdoor activities, come home from a hard day at work. I want to have a nice deck. I want to chill and just relax.
Yeah, a lot of times
you see a lot of that.
Yeah, a lot of times you're extending the life of your house, right? So you're not just inside all the time, you're outside. And COVID did a lot for that, is kind of people looked at their house and said, wow, I have to, do a lot of work, or this deck isn't as well. And people are working from home. So now it's almost like an office outside of their home too. So a lot of people, when we put a roof structure on or we put a screen porch on, that then becomes their outdoor office. I mean, a lot of people live out there.
So that's a new added value. Says if you want to do outdoor work, you have work from home, you want to spend a couple hours, you can chill outside.
Yeah, it's one of those things where not only does it extend the life of your house and your home, right? So giving you added space, it's actually extending your night. So bugs, anything like nighttime, if it's raining or misting, but it's still nice out, it's 80 degrees, but it's just raining. You can sit out there. A lot of people just like listening to the rain. I mean, it's one of those things where it could be 10 o'clock at night.
It's soothing.
It is. It's really nice to sit out there.
It's interesting how the deck business has evolved. Originally a deck, womanized lumber, right? And a frame, somewhere to sit down. Most people didn't even realize they had to maintain it. And then it evolved. And now we have Trex, which is composite. And in my opinion, the best deck for your house, and I always say this with everything, is the one that's installed properly. However, a good contractor like you guys, Coy Construction, are going to pick a premium product that once you install it, it's pretty much hassle-free. Would that be the best way to say it?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, me personally and Coy Construction feels the same way. Is anything that we install, I want it to be proud of it, right? So I'm proud of it. So I'm not, scared that we're using a inferior product that's going to fail later on down the road. Is it going to fade, or is it going to crack, or is it going to not hold up to Michigan winters? There's times where we just went through it where it's 2 degrees outside or -7, and then the next day it's 40. That's a big swing for something that's outside to kind of withstand and not do anything crazy.
Interesting information. So when we say composite, Trex is a composite deck. There's other brands out there, TimberTech and things like that. Those are considered composites as well. What does it mean when you say composite?
So it's a recycled material that goes through an extruder. So 90% of Trex is recycled plastic, and then you got another roughly 10% of recycled hardwood. But when you're talking about like a low maintenance, that's what that composite gives you, is that low maintenance. Once it's in the spring, go out with a Dawn dish soap, bucket of water, little brush, and brush it off with a regular hose. Don't need to power wash it or anything like that. You're more likely to do damage with a power washer than you are just doing it with a regular hose.
That seems to be the case in a lot of situations. I've read about that. So it's pretty much maintenance free. So when you say it's made out of recycled material, so if you want to be green and good for the environment, Trex is the way to go. Yeah,
Trex. I mean, they started off with just taking the big box stores, all their wrapping on their pallets with their goods that were coming in.
Sure,
they would just take all that, recycle that, and then turn it into a deck board. And now they buy that material, but it's part of it, and they are recycled. They're green. It's a green company. So when it comes down to actually saving a little bit when it comes to earth and recycling, it's a top company for it.
That's interesting, because originally when I was doing my research on Trex, I had been told that it was like they take sawdust from like a cabinet factory, they take the bags at like a Walmart and they grind it up, mix it in some kind of resin,
Yep.
and then push it through a extrusion,
Yep.
and out comes a Trex board.
Yep.
Which is kind of cool.
Yeah, it's I walked through the in Winchester, Virginia, we went through Trex U, and it was really cool to watch how, go through the factory and watch how that was all made. And some of the stuff you're amazed. I mean, I'm just amazed by how it's
technology,
little pebbles and little, clear pebbles, and then all of a sudden it gets sucked up and gets turned into a board that's being cut. It felt like a million miles an hour. I think I was staring at it, wondering how it wasn't backing up when it was cutting. So it was just
computers, lasers. No. It's interesting. I like those, how, I'm a gadget guy, so I like how things are made. I like to see and tinker, which is kind of cool. Would love to visit Trex one day. So let's talk about the advantages of Trex decking, because obviously they're like Google. It's almost like, that's
it's like Kleenex.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Kleenex is the brand, right? So it's not, Kleenex isn't a tissue. Kleenex is a brand. Well,
correct.
Most people think Kleenex is just a tissue. Oh, give me a Kleenex, and it might not be Kleenex,
correct.
Right? So the same thing with Trex. People may say they have a Trex deck, and then we walk on it. I can immediately see it, and it's not. Like, it doesn't sound like it doesn't. It sounds a little plasticky. Doesn't sound very good. It doesn't feel good. So Trex has done a really good job with when you walk on a Trex deck, you feel like you're walking on a wood deck. Most people are so used to walking on a treated pine or womanized deck that feeling needs to stay there.
So they know.
Right. You feel like you've
been
on
enough.
solid base.
They wouldn't know because they haven't been on other decks, but I understand what you're saying. Makes perfect sense to me. So Trex probably has, do you know the percentage of market share? Or
I don't know off the top of my head, but they're very high. So
90%?
Yes, yeah, it was like 80 to 90%.
Okay.
When it comes to our company, our Coy Construction, I could name maybe 5 decks that were treated pine decks, and the rest of them were Trex. We've sprinkled in a little TimberTech just because maybe the homeowner wants a certain color or really likes that.
The neighbor had it, and they got to have
we'll
that.
We'll build it, right? I mean, it's not like we won't, but we do highly recommend Trex for their warranty, for their color selections. Their railing selections coincide with the deck colors, so it really matches well, and they've got a good handling on the style. So like a lot of people, that's a big thing about decks nowadays, right? Style. What does it look like? I kind of want to wow people when I'm walking on the deck. So if you have a railing that doesn't match your decking, it kind of looks out of place.
Yeah, that seems to be the case of most things. So homeowner, when they call you and say, yeah, we're thinking about getting a deck, we would like to get a quote. Have they done research already? Like, have they gone on the internet, they watched it on YouTube or the neighbor? Like, pretty much most homeowners have a little bit of information by the time you get to them.
Yeah, for sure. And it's a technology age, right? I mean, most people look up things before, and I do it myself on any other thing just to maybe not sound as bad when I talk to somebody who's a professional at it. But I always like that because at least you know where they're at when it comes to what they want, right? They've already looked at a million pictures. They've already looked at what to do here. But then when myself or Chris or Coy Construction gets there and they're like, this is what I want. This is what I want to do. And we may look at it and go, okay, I like it, but these are things to think about, this, and this, right? And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Why would I wouldn't want to do that, and you try and figure out where stairs go and all that. Stairs are probably the biggest thing of trying to figure out where to go and how to put them. And some people want to put them like right in the middle of basically where you're walking. And me personally, I always try and put it closest to the door because you want to maximize your space on the deck. So wherever that door is, that's convenient, get it close because then that takes up less space on your deck.
You just bring up a good point about stairs. So you're coming out, let's say you're walking out of your home. Typically, most homeowners walk out of their home from a door wall or just maybe just an exit door. They're stepping down to the deck.
Mm-hmm.
Is it rare the decks are flush?
We like to make them flush.
So you have the ability to do that.
Yeah, and we can do it right to that sill or right to that
Before a
roll
full
lock.
step, though, before you need a full step, how low can you go? Can you go up to 4 inches drop down, or
you can go? It's really 7. I mean, eight's pretty high, but that threshold that you're trying to walk through and then step down, 8 inches.
Because you step up and over, then you go straight down.
It's pretty difficult. So I like to be, if we're going to be like a step down, it's right underneath that roll lock or right underneath that sill of the plate.
Door wall,
so like it's trying to be right there, but we've done a lot to where it's floor joist height and we cut around that sill or cut around that roll lock.
Makes sense. So at what point do you need a handrail? 3 steps or
30 inches.
So at 30 inches.
Yeah, 30 inches. Yeah.
So if someone has you come out of the house and there's a 30-foot drop or 30 inches, drop, 30-inch drop, just under 3 feet, 2.5 feet.
Yeah.
So it's 1, 2, 3. Right.
Yep.
Okay. So then you'll need a handrail.
Yep. Yeah. And with steps, 2 steps, 3 rise, you're okay. 3 steps, 4 rise. That's where you need a handrail.
And okay, so I'm just trying to make it so I can visualize it better. Now, I got an 8-foot door wall. You open it up. It's 4 feet, but I want a really wide. I want my steps to be as wide as the door wall, but it's 30 inches. Where does the handrail go?
On either side. I mean, you have
need
to make
one.
it. Yeah, you have to make it on, and you can put it on both sides. Most likely on your door wall, you're going to have an action side and a standard side. So wherever that action side is, now that's all per looks, right? Like, what does it look like? I like to put a lot of things on CAD, so CAD program, and spit out that 3D image.
Okay.
So there's a lot of times where I'll be out in a homeowner's house and I'm sitting here going, okay, this is what I would do. This, right? And then I put it on my CAD program, spit it out on my... And
you visually see it.
I visually see it, and I'm like, I don't really like this. Let's do this. I want to change this and do this. So when it comes to like handrails like that, it depends on the house, right? So like if you have something right next to it where you don't want that handrail to be there on the other side, or it just looks right, it's supposed to be there.
Handrails are not inexpensive either.
Yeah, no, they're
that adds to the price as well.
Yeah, usually, I mean, typical way of kind of thinking is you can lay a complete deck down for whatever that price is. You're basically doubling it to put a railing on.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It's that expensive.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when it's all said and done.
Yeah, you're not touching it. I mean.
Now, do you ever look at the return on investment or the cost versus value, or what a deck does to the impact, or how a deck impacts the value of a house?
So I always say, so far they haven't changed anything to where a Trex deck will help the appraisal value.
Sure.
I always say, if you were looking at a house that's very, very similar and you can't decide one way or the other, one has a treated pine deck or a wood deck, and the other one has a Trex deck, which one are you going to probably lean towards? Like, and maybe give a little bit more money to, or want to stay with that. So in that case, like when it comes to value, yeah, it may not add to your house value, but it might add to your personal value of just not having to do anything.
Well, again, a lot of people will look at, if I put this in, I need to make sure the house is worth this much more. They never add into the equation the value of enjoyment.
Mm-hmm. And
it's hard to put a dollar value on that, but I tell you right now, I have a Trex deck in my house, and when I sit in the backyard, I just think, take a deep breath, relax, and I'm like, yeah, this is worth everything.
This is the time where you're going to realize it the most, is once you look at the snow melt and that first sunny day.
Sure.
And you can go, all right, I can go back out on this deck and cook my pizza and not have to worry about it, right? Like, you're not going to worry about moving all your furniture off, power washing it, staining it. And then that usually takes, you power wash something and you're trying to get to that point where you're power washing it for that weekend. Then you're hoping that it doesn't rain or for the next weekend so you can stain it. And then you took 2 weekends possibly out of your summer or spring trying to maintain this, maybe replace a board or 2. And in the long run, if you put a Trex deck on, I would say a 4-year mark, the return on investment for yourself and not having to power wash and stain it has already came back.
It's interesting you say that, because I was going to ask the question about maintenance. If you do a treated lumber or a pine or a cedar deck, you have to power wash it every year, you have to clean it, and you have to stain it every other year, basically.
Yep.
The cost of your own time, some people say, oh, I love doing it, fine. But for a guy like me, I'm paying someone to do it. It's probably to power wash my deck before I did Trex and stain it a couple of years was probably a couple grand. So in 5 years, I probably spent $6,000.
Right.
And then, then you have the Trex deck, which, and again, is it safe for me to say and tell the audience, nothing's maintenance free?
Correct. Yeah. I mean,
Trex is low maintenance.
Very low maintenance.
Sweep it.
Yeah. Sweep it, clean it with a soap and water one time, maybe 2 times a year if you want to clean it in the fall. That's up to you. But when it comes to, like you talk about the maintenance part coming back to you, that's just like staining it. So if you do have to replace some wood, you're out there trying to cut out a bad piece, put that in. Just a lot of people that we talk to are don't want to do that anymore. They come up with these things because people don't want to do anything with maintenance wise anymore with their deck. And it's crazy to think that something that sits outside all year round,
in 4 seasons,
all 4 seasons, and is covered for 25 years up to 50 years, depending on what line you go with. That's crazy. I mean, cars don't have that type of warranty.
It's funny when you mentioned cars because immediately I thought about cars. Today, cars are pretty much, for the first couple of years, maintenance is included.
Right.
And, people have that mindset now. So, but is there like a care guide? Or is it just, you tell the homeowners, listen, every year, just wipe it off, sweep your deck. And then if you see any stains or anything, soap and water, a little brush, and then use water, just rinse it.
Part of our Trex Pro Platinum that is we register the deck with Trex, and then that care guide and that information comes to you directly from Trex. So we kind of partner with them when it comes to that, and it gets sent over to you. Basically says this is what what we recommend to do at this time.
Sure.
And honestly, you don't even have to. I mean, it's one of those things where it's kind of nice that warranty. They don't put stipulations in the warranty, provide that you washed your deck every year. If it faded and you have uneven fading, they're going to cover it for that 25 years. So that's kind of the nice part about it.
So you guys have done thousands and thousands of Trex decks. If because this is a warranty 25 to 50 years and it lasts if it's maintained right, what could go wrong? Like what could happen to a deck that potentially you say, hey, this manufacturing, maybe there was a lip or something. Have you seen that?
I've only seen it one time when it came to like a cupping of a board.
Sure.
And I actually told the homeowner, I said I didn't know if they were going to cover it, but you do have to send a bunch of pictures and then send it to Trex and then the warranty claim, and then they assess it and go, well, we're a Pro Platinum installer. They didn't even send anybody out. They actually replaced 50 deck boards in something that we built 15 years ago. So that right there was just like, sold me on it.
So when they replace it, do they send you the material and then you guys do it?
Yeah, we just purchased the material. They just covered the purchase, and then they paid for the labor for the install.
Even better. Homeowner must be happy as can be.
Yeah, it was great. Honestly, I had to drag my boot across it. I couldn't visually see it, like the cupping, so I had to drag my boot across it. It was very, very minimal. And
who caught it? The homeowner?
Yeah, the homeowner.
Was he on his hands and knees looking? Engineer. It must have been an engineer.
It had to have been, because some are like that, right? I probably would have never even saw it. Think about it. Nobody really drags their boot across to anything, right? Or grabs their foot across anything. But it was very minimal. But they covered it, and it sold me on that. There's nothing.
You're like, this is the company I want on my house. To put my deck on.
When you back something like that, 15 years later, we installed that 15 years ago, and they covered that 50 deck boards. That was just amazing to me. So it was a really eye opening, because you hear the warranties, you hear those 25, you hear the lifetime, you hear all those things, but then all of a sudden it's like, well, this didn't go this way or this didn't go this way, so we can't cover it, right?
Here's a tip for homeowners about Trex. It could be Owens Corning Roofing or any brand. The reason why I like to feature contractors like Coy is because they're smart. they find a product that gives them the least amount of headache, that will stand behind what the claims are. Because when the homeowner had a situation, they called you. They didn't call Trex. They called you.
Correct.
And it's how the contractor handles it is what satisfies a homeowner. Yeah, I want the best decking, but if you didn't install it right and Trex came out, they would say, hey, look, this product's fine, Mrs. Homeowner. It's the installation that's wrong. And then it puts a bad mark on you. So for a homeowner, when you're thinking of a deck, you're thinking of any kind of construction, I would recommend and advise you to focus mostly on the contractor, because if you find a good contractor like Coy, they'll bring to the table the right product. Now, if you're a homeowner and you say, yeah, I want to use Coy, I want to do my deck. However, my friend who knows everything wants TimberTech. And you go to Coy and say, put in TimberTech. If a homeowner demands it, you'll do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. We just finished one with TimberTech. So,
but you'll also explain to them, hey, listen, if you go with Trex, here's the Trex price, here's the advantages, but there are some disadvantages, you know. I mean, I haven't heard many negative advantages on Trex at all.
No, biggest thing is probably color. You know, like there's sometimes that color, they don't
Pops
have
out.
the exact same color that they want over here. So, I mean, that's like anything else. That's windows, that's blinds. You know, they might not have this perfect color that you need. So in that case, like the one we just built, we just finished,
Sure.
It was TimberTech, and it was because of the color. They just wanted that color. I mean, it just is what it is. Well, and TimberTech has a great warranty too. So I would never, you know, I don't even like bad mouthing any other product. There's some that are just better and made better, and some that are, you know, that just made for budget.
Here's how I look at it, and hopefully homeowners will follow this guide. You're a professional. Trex considers you top in Michigan,
Mm-hmm.
and they're not going to tell people to come to you if they don't think you're great. So for homeowners, no, the contractor needs to know what they're doing, and also has to be confident in the product. There's all kinds of new products. I remember when Trex and other composite decks were coming out, and everyone had this new thing. It was white. It was this. It was that. Next thing you know, they're out of business. Warping, cupping, melting, you know, just not doing what it was supposed to be done or what it was or what it was marketed for. Let's talk about some of the myths. A lot of people say, oh my God, those composite decks are super hot in the summer. I kind of remember a treated deck I had. I'd step on it in the summer. It was boiling hot.
Yeah. I mean, I always say the temperature outside dictates everything, right? So if it's really hot, I don't care if you're walking on the cement. I don't care if you're sometimes grass. I mean, if you're walking on grass, try walking on sand at the beach and try and get to the point where the sand's wet, right? That sand is extremely hot. It's just one of those things where if it's direct sunlight, it's going to get hot. A wood deck can get hot. I've been on wood decks that stained very dark, and that was hotter than some of the Trex that we have. Trex is working its way to providing heat mitigation for the whole line of Trex. Right now, they have the Lineage line that has 30% better heat blockers. And I'm going to be honest, at first I was skeptical of it. You know, I'm like, how does this really work?
Sure.
So we laid some down at our showroom, and one of the hottest days I went out there, put my hand on one and put my hand on the other.
Visibly, you could tell.
It was cooler. So now, is it crazy cooler to where it would make me make a decision on whether or not I would go with this color versus this color? If I really like this color, go with the color that you like. I mean, most people wear shoes, most people wear sandals, most people wear something. Have a rug underneath their table.
Yeah.
You have an umbrella out there. If you're sitting out in the sun and it's 90 degrees and you're just out in the sun, you're going to bake out there. I don't care if it's a patio. I don't care if it's grass. You're going to be hot.
Okay. Yeah. And so the heat is one myth that, you know, is with any kind of deck. How about slippery? You know, again, I go back to, this is why I took my deck out. I slipped and fell on my deck. It was wet out. There was like mold or algae.
Mm-hmm.
And
I
see people falling all the time.
Yeah, you can get a little film or anything on wood. Depends on the area, right? So if you're north facing, you might get a little bit more. And if it's icy, I don't care, whatever it is, it's gonna be slippery. So The Trex has done a really good job on making sure there's bigger grooves in the deck to where you can kind of have
A little
bit
bit
more
grip.
tread and grip, so you're not going to slip as much. But again, I would say that if you put a wood deck down and a Trex deck down, and in the same conditions, you're going to have that same kind of scenario.
So
And you
it's
might be a
not
little bit better.
amplified.
You might be a little bit better with Trex because, say, wood takes a little longer to dry out,
Sure.
right? So Trex does heat up a tiny bit faster. So then, say that you get snow, and then you have a really nice sunny day, it'll melt that snow a lot faster. The hidden clips are gapping the boards, so it's melting a lot faster. So you're not having the standing ice that's sitting on there when treated pine is butted up together, or even that little bit of gap. Put a nail in there and gap it. Well, this is a little bit better gap for it to where it'll melt through and melt faster.
And of course, environmentally, it's a better product than everything else. You don't have to paint it.
No.
So that saves you, because on a wood deck, every couple of years, power wash and stain. So there's that advantage. What other advantages would Trex have over natural wood?
So, I mean, warranty-wise, if you do have like any type of splitting or cracking of that Trex board, that's covered.
Have you ever seen that happen?
No, but if it did, it's covered. And then fading. So if you had a board that's fading unnaturally than the other boards, they're going to cover that. So
Trex doesn't warp, doesn't rot, it won't splinter. Those are three things that wood does. Makes sense. Now, obviously, price-wise, Trex is more money than wood, but there's still woods that are more money than Trex.
Correct.
How is cedar compared to Trex right now?
You can get a Trex Basics deck that we recommend for less money if you lay down the deck boards, less money than cedar right now.
Okay. How prevalent is it if the homeowner goes with a new deck? They had an existing deck, they went and upgraded to Trex, you modified the design, but the base of the existing deck still has good pieces. Do you try to reuse some of that with a homeowner, or do they like, look, got it, I want all new? Which way do you guys go?
So it really depends on if the design is staying the same.
Yeah.
And we do that inspection on the substructure, and it looks good, and we have no fear of it at all. It's built properly.
Sure.
It's right. We'll reuse that substructure.
So there's some savings for the homeowner in that case.
For sure. If somebody, a lot of times nowadays, people are trying to kind of change their design. They've lived on their deck for 5-10 years, and they're like, okay, I wish I could do this. If I were to change it, this is what I would do. A lot of times at that point, trying to utilize that substructure, but then try and modify it is really tough. Because you're doing more work just to save that. We would rather just kind of wipe it away and start fresh. If it's little modifications, like there's a 45 angle on the end of the deck and they just want to square it off, fine. That's no big deal. But if we're really changing elevation of the deck, then we're gonna wipe it clean.
So what's the protections you use when a deck is built and it's built over grass? Weeds, things growing through. What's your process to prevent stuff or wildness or whatever, anything growing through the bottom of the deck, through the boards?
So we use a plastic and stone. So we use a really thick visqueen plastic, lay that down. So the post holes get dug, footings are set, plastic goes down, stone on top of that, just to hold that plastic down. Two purposes: hold the plastic down, looks nicer than weeds and stuff going through. So that's always number one. If it's patio, like a patio that we're building over the patio, leave the patio. And if it's a cement patio, we may cut a hole to put the footings in. Or if it's just a brick paver patio, we'll pluck the ones out that we need to pluck out to dig the holes, and then leave that. That's another weed. That's just a weed barrier. They've already done a good job of making sure there's there might be a little bit of weeds or something that's poking through the brick pavers, but and we'll still put plastic and stone because it just looks better. At that point, we don't want to look at a patio underneath there. We don't look at plastic and stone. That's a natural look of under a deck.
Chris, let's give some of the listeners some advice on when they're ready to buy a deck. So first thing anyone needs to know when they're buying a deck, let's say they watch this and they're like, oh my God, I'm going to call Coy Construction. when they call you and they say they've heard it from us, what would you like them to be prepared for moving forward?
So big thing is timing, right? So number one is always timing. When can you get here? When can you get there? That's always like the bigger thing. So when it comes to that, you want to know when you're going to need this deck. Absolutely. Some people are in the spring, some people are in the summer, some people are in the fall.
But I think inherently, and tell me from your experience, my experience, which is not as extensive as yours in the deck space, homeowners call you up and think, we'll be there next week, let's get started. They just have this idea, like they watch HGTV and they saw them remodel a house with a deck in 28 minutes.
Right.
Not happening.
Right. Yeah. So like even right now, if you were to call and give us a deposit today, we wouldn't be out there for 8 to 10 weeks. I mean, so we're already into that spring, touching that spring time frame right now. So that's always a big thing. So if you want to know that, you gotta already think 8 to 10 weeks, you give a deposit. We're doing a lot of back scene stuff when it comes to permits or making sure the colors and selections and designs all nailed down. But that's right before a crew can get there. Then once that crew is going to get there, we're going to have lumber dropped off. We're going to have a dumpster there. We might have to have a tear out first before the post holes are dug because we're redoing the whole thing. There's a lot of things
you explain that to the homeowner beforehand, right?
Absolutely.
If they say to you, how long is my deck going to take? Every deck is different. Every deck has a different size, but you won't start the deck. Let's say they order a really cool color in special order. You won't start until it's in stock or delivered, correct?
Yeah. And if we know that it's something that's a special order, we're going to order it, well in advance, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever that timeline is, we're going to order that already to have that in stock. Trex, Northfield Lumber, Man's Lumber, they stock almost everything.
Sure.
So we can order it the next day and it's there, which is nice.
Good.
But if there's any special orders, we're proactive on that part of it and making sure that we're ordering it beforehand.
What if the homeowner's in a hurry and they're like, okay, I know my material is there, but can't you get my footings done? Can't you get the rest done? And then when your carpentry crew's ready, send them over? Or is it, no, we have a process, a production list, and you do it that way? I'm just curious how it works.
So the only time when maybe a homeowner's in a hurry like that is if they're having like concrete poured and we're trying to work with another contractor.
Okay.
And it's a walkout level and
trying
like, hey, can you put these footings in so they can pour the concrete? And then I don't care if you come in after, but generally, I would say 99% of the time, those footings, because we pour dry concrete in the holes, so we can work right away. We don't have to wait for concrete to cure. It's a misconception, right? You have to pour wet concrete in there, wait for it to cure before you can do anything. You pour dry concrete in the hole, you backfill the hole back in, and you continue going. You just
the dry concrete, and this is interesting. So for people who want to know this, you dig the post hole 48 inches, put the post in, level it, then you pour a bag of Quickcrete or whatever the concrete is. It's dry, powdery.
Yep.
You don't add water because the moisture from the
ground seeps in and cures that. So, and we're allowed to keep going, right? You can just keep going. You can set the footings, you can plumb them, and then it just sets, and then you set them with the beam. So it all sets in there nice and perfect.
And you're always checking to make sure everything's square.
Yeah, everything's square and plumbed. So when that comes, answer your question, no, we would want to go full tilt, right? Soon as we got those that post hole approval is in, and that crew's there, they're working until that deck's up.
Gotcha. All right, I want to ask some budget questions. Homeowner, most of them don't know what a deck costs. They may have had one 15, 20 years ago, had somebody do it, got a really good deal, wink, wink, leftover materials from the neighbor's job. They paid a little bit more, and they've, with bubble gum and some tape, kept the deck alive. Now they're really ready for a new deck. Is it common where homeowners just don't have a real clue of what a deck costs?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on especially if they've done it themselves or something like that. There's not a lot of labor into that. You do it yourself, right? So, when it comes to actual costs depending on railing styles and Trex, whatever line of you want to go with, but generally like a good budgeting price is right around 25, 30 grand is usually all in.
So 25 grand, let's just use it as a base number. Not all decks are $25,000. However, let's use that as a number. $25,000 deck is size-wise. Give me an average size that will cover that.
You're looking at like a 15, 16 by 20, something like that. Set of steps going down with some railing.
So about 300, 350 square feet.
Yeah.
Okay. And then some railing, nice design, not herringbone or basic.
Yeah. When we can use deck boards that are the full shot across. I mean, we don't necessarily charge too much if we have to put a buckboard in because it's so much larger. If it's larger than 20 feet, you can't, they only have a 20-foot deck board. So we don't necessarily upcharge for that type of stuff, but we'll upcharge for herringbones because we have to add more substructure to it to get that diagonal.
And it's more labor too.
Correct.
The cuts are more, and it's more waste. Now, when we do roofing, we have 10%, 15%, 20% waste. When you do decking, do you have percentages of waste as well?
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on that size. Sometimes we might have a 15% waste because the deck size is what it is, and we're kind of in the middle where we have a 2-foot waste. There's a lot of times where, like in our instance, we may keep that waste and use it for skirting on another job or something like that we can reuse that color.
Can you cantilever the decks?
Yeah.
What is it? Is it still only on 4 feet or is it 2 to 1?
2 feet.
You can only go 2 feet.
Right.
Okay. If you go 4 feet, you got to put posts.
Correct.
Makes sense. Is there a weight capacity? You know how in the past decks were collapsing because they weren't built properly? Do you guys over-design your decks to make sure?
Yeah, you want to go to the 40 pounds per square foot. So in that case, it depends on whether or not it can be attached to the house or not. Brick you can't attach to the house. If you can get to the subfloor and the substructure of vinyl siding, you can still attach to the house, with a structural ledger board. But most of the time we put a beam in the back to make it a freestanding deck.
But it's still attached.
Right. Yeah, we always like putting the ledger board on there because if you've ever walked on a deck without a ledger board attached to the house and it's an upper level deck, you might feel a little shimmer or like shake.
Sure.
So it's like a little tremor. It just doesn't feel very good. And not that the deck's going to go anywhere, but it's not attached to something. So it's truly freestanding.
So there's that little bit. I get you. But it's built safe. And obviously you pull permits on all your decks.
Yep.
Code, the law, you have to.
Yeah, we go by that. So everything's by that.
Back to the $25,000 deck. About 350 square feet, you said. Includes a few steps, includes handrails. How long? Let's just assume there was grass there. From the day the homeowner says, or from the day your crew shows up, how long does it take to build that deck?
I always tell everybody 7 to 10 business days. When it comes down to it, you just never know if it's a bad weather day or something like that. I've seen our crews get done with a job in 3 days and I was just impressed, right? Like it was an easier deck. Railing was super easy. Didn't have to worry about so many cuts. The size of it, we just could lay down the actual deck board and it's done. There wasn't all these extra cuts and everything that way. So, but I've seen some that have gone even longer, but I would say average is 7 to 10.
Okay. So about 2 weeks or less, get a decent deck.
Yep.
Because you're busy and you build year round. If a homeowner contacts you and says, I'm ready to go now, even though they have to be put in line, what are we talking on average? We're heading into the peak season. Is it 4 to 6 weeks before you start, or it could potentially be weather dependent?
Right now, we're about 8 to 10 weeks out.
Okay.
This weather here that we just had, with the real cold, that really slowed us down a little bit, but these guys just ramped right back up. So, but 8 to 10 weeks is where we're at right now, and it'll climb to 14 to 16 weeks. By May it'll be that. And
so here we are, beginning of February. If you're a homeowner and you want to enjoy your deck this summer, the advice is get a hold of Coy Construction now. Get them out there. Get the design going. Now, pricing, again, back. If I want to finance. Do you offer help financing?
We don't have any financing. Anything that we've ever done has been a super high rate, and you can go to your bank or go to.
So homeowners get a line of credit, but go to a credit union.
It's a better solution than that. Anything that we've ever had has just been super high rate. We've been looking into it, but we haven't got into that yet.
Okay. Most homeowners have the option, but they usually end up, they want the points, credit card. They do whatever they got to do.
Yep. Yeah.
That makes sense. So Chris, if someone's looking to get a quote or an estimate from Coy, what's the phone number, the website? Where are you guys located?
So 248-363-1050 is our phone number, coyconstruction.com. Go to our website. You can fill out the questionnaire at that. Our address, we're in Walled Lake, Commerce.
And you service all of Metro Detroit.
Yeah, and we go up north too. So
if the people who have the houses up north area,
Porch Lake,
you'll be able to take care of them too.
Absolutely.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Chris, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today. Coy Construction, part of the Hire It Done pre-screen network, amazing contractors specializing in Trex decking. I highly advise you to click the link in the bio, get more information. Go to hireitdone.com if you want to get more as well. Thanks for coming on, man.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Appreciate it.
Awesome.
Didn't ask for us once you got